everybody. All right, so today is going to be an epic time. I have Josh here. This is one of the men that I believe is going to be able to help a ton of you and in a bunch of different ways. Not only does he have a unique way of doing everything, he actually brings in tech, biohacking, and I met him at the Dallas Biohacking Conference where I came in being me. I was like, all right, so do you have your glutes activated? He was at this booth with the Vivo barefoot technology, and I was just like, oh, I'm looking for the sneakers. And this man was here. I was like, oh, he's cool to talk to. And I was just like, since he's cool to talk, let's actually have a conversation. He was actually working with an older lady, and he was doing foot yoga. And that's how I knew I can actually have a conversation with him. So I'm so happy to introduce this man. He's done a lot. I'm gonna let him introduce himself because I always kill it on people. Josh, please introduce yourself.
Well, first of all, Pat, thanks for having me, man. It's been an honor getting to know you, and I love your curiosity. I love the way your mind works, and you are a man after my own heart in terms of always asking questions to get us, several layers deeper. And so thanks for having me first and foremost, and thanks for sharing your time with me and all the listeners and viewers. So my background is quite extensive, and we could probably go down a bunch of rabbit holes, but I think you did sum it up quite well in that I'm a man of many hats. I used to appreciate the analogy of a jack of all trades, a master of none, and I used to adapt that to a Josh of all trades and a master of a lot,
Let me
right?
poke
And so
holes in that, but keep it up.
yeah. So, that this was kind of how I was thinking when I was younger. And then of course, a lot of that is adapted and changed throughout my life. But I'm most notably known as a celebrity fitness trainer, a health coach, a health optimization coach, biohacker, whatever term resonates with you or with someone that's listening. I basically try to find, I'm at the end of the day, I'm a problem solver. So I like to look at sort of discrepancies and imbalances and voids within a person's lifestyle, career, and try to find ways to work through that. And because of my extensive experience and background, especially with the network of people that I work with, I have lots of people that I can draw from, people like yourself, where I may not have all of the experience and information in a certain area of work. However, I can lean on the people that I believe are in my community. And that's doctors and surgeons and, investors and, even like royalty, right? So like there's loads of different people that I can draw experiences from. And I sort of bring that into my breadth of work. And that's what I do. So, yeah.
So the first thing I want to dive into, because I see so many rabbit holes already. One, Josh Lovely did not say that he developed a suit that uses e-stim. That is a hell of a workout, massively awesome, and we're going to jump into that later. But the first thing I want to bring in is we're all high performers. We all learn how to live with our high performer mind, and we see things differently. And you probably heard that saying that Josh inadvertently flipped into a positive that we've all heard as a negative. You're a jack of all trades, a master of none. And people have said that to me so many times in the aspect, this perspective for me to hone down and get laser focused on one thing. And then as I started to learn more and more about that phrase, it was made back at a time where you had to know many different things. You had to be a smither. You had to learn how to cook. Had to go hunt. You had to do many different things. And the more things that you knew, the more times and more ways you can survive in the massive world that anything can happen. So in my viewpoint, that statement, if someone's putting it to a negative, I want you to remember my words and saying it's not. In that day of time, you need to learn as many things as much, and you need to master as many things as once to stay alive, to
Mm.
thrive in the environment that you have. And that is us. That is what we are. On the top of that is we went through the cycle of you have to be a specialist. And if you haven't realized, in this Western world, the more specialists they are, there's more problems because no one's talking to anyone.
There you
So the
go.
more and more you specialize in one thing, you're awesome. Don't get me wrong. But as soon as you leave that wheelhouse, you're screwed. And that's
Yep.
when people go to orthopedists, and the orthopedic doesn't know what's happening inside of the body, the core of the body, because those two people don't talk. And because they specialize in those things, there's a missing link. So I want you to expand your knowledge, know your strength, and strengthen your weaknesses. And that's the key thing that I want to say about that one little term that is almost a trigger word for me. It's like, oh, I used to hear that all the time to get me to stop. But Josh, you
Yep.
just spun it in a way where it was really, really simple. Now, really quick, before we really get into it, tell everybody how you developed those suits, and then I'll tell people how we got meeting.
Will do. So just to wrap up what you were saying, it's that notion of having like everyone suggesting, like where I grew up in Oklahoma, a small town, it was sort of the natural thing to do is to kind of stay in your lane, pick something, get really good at it, master it. And I always felt inherently that was so wrong. I felt like, and I had a really good example from my parents who worked multiple jobs and had many different skills, and they were able to utilize those skills. And so whenever I saw some of my friends and their families talk about, oh, you should not try to do so many things and just focus on one, I was like, well, that's not the truth for me. You know what I mean? I felt that at a very young age, very young age. Anyway, so, and then I guess the last thing I will say on that is it's ultimately what allowed me to become a health optimization coach, because I started noticing when I was working with some of the high profile people I were working with, I realized that they had a person in every little domain. So it was like, if they wanted to have like, they wanted to dial in their nutrition, they would talk to their chef, the chef would talk to a nutritionist, and then if they had to get a surgery, they would go to a surgeon. If they needed something with their mouth, they would go to the dentist. And in my brain, I was kind of like, listen, I have some advice and some concepts in ways to fix kind of all of these things, to kind of fix the human organism. And maybe I'm not a dentist, but I can maybe give you some things that might be able to help your teeth, and so they started to come to me to ask me some of these questions before then going to their specialist. And so I think that that's what enabled me to become this sort of one-stop shop for a lot of my clientele. And so now they reach out to me as a consultant to say, who's the best person you think I should talk to about this given situation? And then I'll go, oh, you know what? I know a handful of people, but before you do that, let's look at the reason why this is happening. So again, it's back to the problem solving. And that just comes from having experience in a multitude of things, not just one specialty. So
How many years have you been playing around with in this world of optimization? Because I'm 24 years deep, and you just made me realize one of the things that's happening in this chapter of my life. Well, I'll explain in a second. But how many years have you been doing this for?
So I would say ever since I moved to New York, and I've been here for 21 years. So I say over 2 decades of this level of work.
So
Yeah.
I'm 24. I'm 24 deep, right? And what you just told me was fascinating, because I'm now seeing in my chapter of my life, I do things differently because I sync the mind and body together, where everyone separates mind and body. So I'm bringing the body, and like your body is telling you the story every single day. If you're not aware of your body, you're screwed, or you're flying blind. You don't realize your e-brakes on. I have so many different ways of putting it, but you just nailed it on the head. It was like, we know so many different things and we pair it together. Yeah, we're not specialists in one thing, but we combine everything so you're an organism. That is something I teach, and I never piece that together. So again,
Mm.
I'm talking with you, and I'm learning something new every single day, man. I'm loving you,
See,
man.
well, I'm loving you too, man. And again, that's why I say I love the way you think. And I can just give an analogy. So obviously, you see, I like to bounce off of a certain topic, and this is why it's easy to go down rabbit holes with me. But I don't want this piece to be missed, because I like to create analogies. This is how, like, my podcast is called Simply Walk the Talk. And the reason why I adapted it to that is because I like to break down complex conversations and break it down in a way that we can all understand, because I don't want to miss anyone along the journey. I want us all to be able to go on that journey. And so one of the analogies I like to create when it comes to how the body and mind are connected and how we need to listen to our body to understand what's happening in the rest of the system is very similar to a check engine light. And even beyond check engine light, right? We know that the check engine light means you need to check something within the car, right? it's called check engine light because typically there's always something happening with the engine. But nowadays, I know more modern cars have just like a caution light, a check something light, because maybe the tire pressure is down, right? That would be akin to our feet and our legs, right? Um, the engine of the car would be analogous to our brain, right? The our endurance capabilities would be analogous to either the battery itself or the fuel system, right? And so if you're checking the engine, chances are you got to check something. And the same thing happens for us. Our check engine light is usually pain or some kind of manifestation that is not normal. But we've gotten so far to where we don't really know what normal is. That's like riding your car with the check engine light on all the time and just going
Hmm.
like, oh, you know what? I've learned how to twist the ignition a handful of times to be able to turn off the check engine light. That's basically us bypassing our pain. So that's just another analogy to hopefully help people understand that there's things that our bodies are telling us that maybe our mind was telling us as well, but we override that a lot. And so we're very powerful with our minds. We can override certain pains, but that physical manifestation at some point is going to give up. So
Hmm. That's
just,
something that I see a lot. Like with high performers, we consistently put ourselves to the back burner because we want to serve. We want to help each other. We want to help the person in front of us. They want to help our tribe. And there's a good percentage of people that will not even recognize that they're in a deep shit. They won't know what's happening, what's going on inside their body until their body starts to really sputter and give out. The car's not in a good place. And then, like, oh my God, I teach this and I didn't even do it. And then a flicker of imposter syndrome starts to flicker in. It's like, how the hell am I supposed to teach this if I'm falling apart myself? But they're not realizing there's a belief that now kicks in that you don't matter. You have to serve. And that's what now got you all the knowledge that you did, but also you want to give so much that you will put yourself in a bad place. So you actively ignore it. And it's based off of a belief, which is a deeper root issue of it. It has to be. And this is one of the reasons why I love helping people that help other people, because they don't take care of themselves. I'm realizing you never want to buy a car from a mechanic because he hasn't taken care of his mechanic, his car, but he needs help, right? Everyone that wants to serve everybody else. That's why I love helping moms, because they will give it all to their family and forget about themselves. And then I teach them, what are you teaching your kids by doing that? And that
yeah.
hurts. And
Yeah.
that's the thing I really want you to start leaning into is, how did you get over your bad habits? How did you start really leaning into clearing up the beliefs that was keeping you moving small? Because you didn't pop out of the womb like, I'm a celebrity trainer, I'm awesome, yeah.
I mean, it's a really profound question and it's something to ponder. However, I can tell you that I I don't I mean, there's very few times in my life that I can recall that I ever thought that I was being held back by anything that I was able to do. Because at the end of the day, like I've ever since I can remember, I've always had great initiative. I've always had great drive. Um, However, there's been times that I've let myself loose by using the crutch or the excuse of traveling and not being able to eat as clean as I would normally eat when I'm home. And it's just an excuse, it's a crutch. And so ways I would sort of get myself out of that situation is to go to the other extreme. I would challenge myself. Like, for instance, I'll give you an example. One thing that I wish I had done differently throughout my life is I wish I would have been more of a reader. I only read because school was easy for me. I was able to have, excellent grades, went to school on a full academic and full athletic scholarship, uh,
Basketball.
basketball and academics. I made the all athletic team and it was school was fairly easy for me, but I realized that because it was easy for me, it allowed me to be lazy. And so
Ah,
whenever I was asked to read something, I didn't read because I enjoyed the reading. I read to suffice the task at hand. So like again, I'm a problem solver. So if I need to read X amount of books with X amount of pages, I'm gonna read exactly X amount of books with exactly X amount of pages. Right? That was it. Don't put me in a box because I'm gonna be in that box and I'm gonna crush it. Right? But then I realized that as I graduated school, I found myself only reading like the random article that was interesting to me, the random magazine because I thought it was interesting. But when people would ask me about books that they've been reading, I'm like, nah, I don't really like to read. And I kept finding myself saying that, like, I don't really
It was
read.
a belief.
So what I did was I challenged myself to read a book a week for an entire year. And I did it. I did more. I did so instead of 52 books, I think I did 55 books in a year. And most of them were, like big books too. We're talking big books. And so that changed everything for me. And that's not even talking about fitness necessarily. Like I was just reading, finally reading books that were interesting beyond just training, beyond just health and wellness.
Like what?
Like biographies and autobiographies. Like one of the first ones I remember reading is I was going to Australia and on tour with Roger Waters, and that was when I remembered trying to create the excuse of, well, I'm traveling, so I don't want to carry all these books, right?
Kindle.
So then again, to get myself out of this like excuse pattern, I was like, yeah, but there's digital books and there's audio books and there's whatever. But I will say, like, all I did during that, I didn't do a single audio book. It was all either paperback or digital, ebooks. And one of the first ones I read was, I think, called The Song Lines, and it was about the history of the indigenous Aboriginal people of Australia and how what they deemed to be song lines and how music and singing was a part of their history. It's how they recall their histories through song and
Huh.
also through these patterns, right? And another book I read after that was a book about an immigrant family in which um, they had to flee their country from Asia, somewhere in Asia, and they were subject to like extreme racism. And then eventually, the son, I guess the guy, the main story, became this amazing comedian. And it was just interesting how I think he even witnessed like family members being killed, starving at sea, doing all these things, but then to flip it and become a world renowned comedian was just like a very amazing story. And so these are kind of like the first two books that I read, which got me thinking like, wow, there's so much more out there than just health and wellness and fitness, and
Uh-huh.
science. So anyway, so that's just some examples of like how I do it, how it works for me. One more example is if if I pay any amount of money for something, I'm going to get the most out of it. So sometimes what I do to challenge myself to get off my ass and move more or to exercise more or whatever, you saw my place. I got lots of equipment, but I make sure,
You have more equipment than me. And I thought I had a lot for my space, but you got, holy moly,
yeah,
two
I got a
bedrooms
lot of
worth.
equipment, but I do it simply because I'm like, okay, I want to get use out of it because you never know. You know, like if somebody comes over and maybe they have a headache or maybe they have a hurt back or something like that, like we can go to your level of detail with working with them, which is a great practice to have and a great toolkit to have. And I can also do more things a bit more passively to then open that window of opportunity to then do more with them, right? And so sometimes I can tell when a person is dealing with some kind of physical trauma or emotional trauma. Sometimes they kind of they go inside and they wall off, and you never know, like sometimes you might put them on a PEMF mat that they can tangibly feel, they can feel the vibration, or you show them about grounding and you get their light bulb to turn off, and then that wall starts to come down and they start to open up a little bit more. And then it's like, oh hey, you want some water? Yeah, okay. Would you like this you know this infused magnesium with ocean salt mineral water with sparkling, or do you want just regular, filtered water? They're like, well, of course I want the special water. What's it about?
Give me the special
Ah,
stuff. What are you talking about?
yeah. And then I go down the path of this and why that's important, how that makes you more hydrated so you can get grounded better and blah, blah, blah. And so it's like one thing feeds into the next because it's a journey. And so I apply that to myself and then I apply that to my work.
So I have two questions that popped up just because you brought up the water and rehydrating. I found that baking soda and sea salt,
That's
and drinking
exactly what
that
I do.
throughout.
That's but I sparkle it. Look,
I'm
look,
sorry.
that's
I'm
exactly
sorry
what's
about
in
that.
here. That's exactly
Um,
what's in here. But the difference,
explain why though. Explain why that works.
the
That's what I was going to
difference,
ask you.
yes. So um everyone kind of knows about, they've heard of pH and acidity and this and that. And let's just be frank here. There's almost no amount of baking soda water we can drink that's going to affect all of our pH, because if our blood pH changes, too much, it can mean life or death. Okay. What we're talking about though is there's different pH levels in the different organs in our body. And so one of the things I like to talk about is just try to consume some amount of like baking soda each day, because it is helpful for creating a more alkaline state within the gut. Okay. Now, some people think that if we are, because there are levels, and one of the ways to test this is if you drink this water that we make, if you drink it and you feel yourself burp, or you're gassy, you got a fart, then that means that there was a need for a balancing of the acidity and the alkalinity within your gut. That's usually what that means. And a lot of people don't even really think about that. But that's one way to know if you need to take a little bit more or a little bit less. So you can titrate your levels of baking soda, and which is what I do. I have this little scoop. I use this stuff called Active pH Restore. And it's basically an alkaline solution, which helps us to, because, well, it helps us to bring
Wait,
about
that's
more
the form of
oxygen.
baking soda that you're using?
Yeah, it's a baking soda solution with magnesium bicarbonate. So the drink I make is basically a magnesium bicarbonate, and so you make that with by adding the carbon dioxide bubbles through the soda stream that helps to create a magnesium bicarbonate solution, and then I
Oh,
add
so
the
now
ocean.
you just level this up. So someone would take sea salt and baking soda that we all have, drop it in a little thing, but you just add you add the bubbles to it, which then binds it better. Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying to me?
yeah,
See, that I didn't know.
yeah, so it helps to activate it because you're adding carbon dioxide, right? So you can imagine the chemical reactions that occur. And so what I do is I don't just add sea salt, by the way. I add specific ocean minerals, which is the closest thing to our blood plasma. So it's got all of the periodic elements. It's basically exactly the same as the solution of our plasma.
I think
So
you sent me this link, so I'm not gonna act really like ignorant to it, but please tell more.
yes. So I take, just, if you have one moment, let me just grab these two so you can see it. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
One
So
second.
I'll tell them. So one of the things that I want to bring here to your attention, me and Josh, we hung out, right? And when we hung out, he took me through his extensive biohacking lab. And the reason why I brought this up, because I knew he has stuff about hydration, and we're
Okay.
all wondering what we're doing to hydrate ourselves. What are we doing to get better? And in his suite, I showed you a couple things that I have in my suite. His suite is infinitely better than mine, to the aspect that he has a barobank chamber, he has a dunk tank, he has what was the oxygen thing that we the ozone therapy in his room. Like I walked
Okay.
in, I was
Yeah.
like, yo, why is my head spinning right now? He's like, oh, that's the ozone, bro. And I was like, oh god dang, I need this now. So there
Yes.
were so many different things. So the reason why I wanted him to get into it, because he's not just put the weight, pick the weight up, put the weight down, get grounded.
Oh
There's
no.
so much more aspects to Josh, and that's why I wanted him on here, so he can now start geeking out with me, because not a lot of people want to geek out with me these days. So Josh, tell me
Okay.
about the sea salt.
All right. So this here, I'm holding up on the camera for those that are
Liquid
watching the
liquid
video.
ocean minerals.
Yeah, it's by Baja Gold. I did a podcast with the guys from this company. I also have like links and videos that I've done in support of them. But what's really good about this is literally purified water and mineral sea salt from this region of Mexico, which is incredible. All they do is they take the water, let it sit in the open air, and the only thing that reacts to it is the sun. That's it, right? So
Ah.
it's really amazing. So I take 2 drops of this, or not drops, but 2 droppers of this in I have an Aqua True filtration system. So I fill this bottle up with the reverse osmosis water, which is almost distilled. It's almost distilled water. The issue with distilled water, a lot of people think, well, oh, it doesn't have any toxins in it, doesn't have any,
Leeches stuff out of
any
you.
bad stuff in it, but it also doesn't have any good stuff in it either, right? We need electrolytes. Electrolytes is just another fancy word for minerals, right? And so there's specific minerals that are classified in the electrolyte spectrum, and all of that is taken out if you just have regular AquaTrue or reverse osmosis water. So you need to remineralize that. One of the best ways to remineralize something is to take a sea salt solution, something like this, and then to create the I think one of the most things that we as a human society miss today in today's world is magnesium, but we also miss a lot of minerals. So Active pH Restore is one of the products that I get that has magnesium carbonate, sodium bicarbonate, which is baking soda, and potassium bicarbonate. So these together, I basically call magnesium bicarbonate, but it's because these 3 minerals, this mineral solution, together with the carbon dioxide, makes this most amazing. Like, you don't see any cloudiness, right? This is not cloudy at all. This is pure drinking water. And I love sparkling water because it has electrolytes in it. This is what
Yep.
people don't understand. If you look at the back of a Pellegrino bottle, it'll say sodium on there. Well, it says sodium on here too because it's an electrolyte, right? This is what people need to understand. And why is that important? It's important because that's the best way to hydrate. A lot of people think that you just throw back some water, you're hydrated. No, you need the
Minerals.
electrolytes.
Those
So
electrolytes.
you need the minerals. Exactly. So if you're not going to get that from drinking your water, then you can at least add this to your water. You don't have to be fancy and add the soda stream and do all that stuff. But anytime I'm drinking water, I think even when you came here, I gave you drops of this, right? Because this is, I want everyone, even if they say, oh, I have water. Okay, great. Here, you want some electrolytes? And they're like, yeah. And then
Does it give it a
when you're,
different taste? Now that I remember, because you put it in the cup, but I don't remember if it had
good
a
question.
different flavor.
Did I give you the sparkling version?
I'm not. No, it was the one out of the machine.
Regular. Okay. So when it's sparkling, when I do the sparkling thing we just talked about, you don't taste a difference. It tastes just like a Pellegrino. It's amazing.
Okay.
And so the carbonation, like the carbon dioxide, somehow binds with everything to make it taste like it's not even there, right? Which is great. When you drink it regular without the sparkling feature, then you can taste a little bit of the saltiness, but it's not bad. It's a slight taste. With this one, with other salt solutions, it's very salty. It's like, when we were younger, if we had like a pulled tooth, did you ever have to swish around salt water in your mouth?
I
Yeah.
still do that.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good technique, but a lot of times you don't want to drink that, right? And so, yeah, so again, we can go down rabbit holes, but one of the main reasons why I do this is to be more hydrated. And one of the ways I can tell that I'm hydrated or not is by doing a transference test with grounding. So
Explain that. And how
yeah,
can the average person do it? Is the better way?
okay, so
As
all
he
this
drinks
talk about water, I got thirsty.
As he
Okay,
drinking water.
so so how familiar is your audience about grounding?
Start from the start. Start from the top.
Ooh, let's start from the bottom. Let's start from the ground. Ground
The
up.
ground up. Oh,
Okay.
touche
So
on that.
all right. Okay, grounding is a somewhat controversial genre.
Is it?
Yes, it's very, I shouldn't even say somewhat. It's very controversial. And the reason is because a lot of people think it's quackery, they think it's foolish, But I think the people that think that just haven't experienced enough and haven't been in a situation in which grounding could help them, like that they could see tangibly, right? And so a lot of times, if a person is truly grounded for a period of time and then they go off of it, you can almost immediately feel the difference. You can tell that there's a bit of a difference. And like I mentioned before with the car analogy, we've gone so far in the direction of like bypassing pain, that, or bypassing even like a unnatural optimized state, that we don't even know what that feels like anymore. We don't know what it feels like to feel truly healthy. And so
Awareness.
grounding is one of those foundational methods that I think everyone should be doing at some point throughout their day, and certainly throughout their life. All of us. I don't care if you're an extreme athlete at the elite level. I don't care if you're, a kid. I feel like, or a pet. We all should be grounded, because our ancestors, before these modern homes were built and the industrial revolution, pre all of that, we were all grounded most of the day and night. We
And they
either
didn't have
slept.
half of the stress we have.
Exactly. And so, exactly, right? So, when you have more stress in our lives, we probably need grounding even more. But imagine if you really reduced your stress and you grounded as much as possible. You're talking about feeling like a superhero. And so when a person comes to me, almost hands down, I'm going to always suggest grounding at some point. Okay. There's a little bit of a caveat in that people with on blood pressure medications, they have to be very mindful of doing too much grounding, because what we've seen in studies and research is that grounding has been proven to help make the blood less viscous, which means we typically, if we were to test our blood, most of us are probably walking around with blood that has a consistency of maybe like ketchup, whereas we should have more of the consistency of something like wine, like red wine, right? And so when the molecules and the cells get kind of jumbled together and stuck together, then that's what makes it clumpy and more sludgy and thick. And so the moment you get grounded, they've done like the dark field microscopy scans, and they've seen that within seconds, the cells start to line up and create space, therefore making the blood less viscous, allowing it to flow better, which increases your circulation, which reduces the load on your heart, which helps to make the joints less inflamed. So if you have joint pain, this is one great solution. If you've got neuropathy, neuromas, all these things like can be helped with grounding. So what is grounding? Grounding typically is known as connecting your feet, or I like to say your skin, to the earth. If you are in an environment where you cannot connect your skin to the earth, then you can do that indoors with a grounding mat, or they've got all kinds of different tech. There's even grounding shoes, which is what we first talked about when we first met. There's many other technologies out there, but the reason why I say it's controversial is because depending on how you test it, and then depending on who's talking about it and all the claims that are mentioned, that's where it gets a little bit wonky. So if at the basic level, we understand that most of our issues of today comes down to inflammatory disease, then that's where we should start. If most complications we have in today's world stem from inflammatory disease or oxidative stress, those kind of go hand in hand, oxidative stress, inflammatory disease, grounding is one of the main things to quell that. It's one of the
Correct.
main things that can help it, right? So
Correct.
if that is your kind of your baseline understanding of it, then I would think that everyone watching, everyone listening would get online right now, or even better, go outside right now, take off your shoes and socks, or put your hands in the dirt, in the earth, whether it's the beach, whether it's in grass, whether it's in dirt. We got to connect to the earth. Okay. From there, I talk about, I have all over my website and all over my, my social media, all these different tools that you can get. Like I have bed sheets, I've got grounding mats. So the idea of transference is, how does that affect go from one organism to another organism? And is there a blockage? Okay. So if someone who grounds all the time, I've been doing it for over a decade. if I'm grounded all the time because I sleep on it, I'm well hydrated, things like that, I can find transference through people who aren't even grounded, which is really interesting. So, for instance, I like to show this. So, if I have somebody on a grounding mat, and I ask them to test, like put their feet on the grounding mat, I test them, it'll show no grounding, no conductivity. That means there's a blockage in their system. Their body is not able to take it in, because the more hydrated we are, the more electrolytes we have, the better that salt solution, because we know salt
Mhm.
is a solution that is conductive. It's why we're able to have synaptic firing from the brain to our limbs and back, right? That's because of the interstitial fluid, the plasma within our body. It's a saline solution, right? This is why
Correct.
when you go to the hospital, they give you an IV of saline, not water. It's saline. So this is what we need to have to be able to be conductive. And so if I see that somebody doesn't register that they're grounded, even though they're on a grounding mat that I know works, I immediately go and give them this water solution I was telling you about. I have them drink that for a moment. And then I'll test them and show them that, look, I'm on the same mat. This is registering that it's grounding for me. Okay. Now I want you to, after you drink that water, you go and retest. Usually the light comes on. If the
So I need
lights,
to get this device. What is this device? Because I've been using a voltmeter, and it's just a numbers version of it, where I have
ooh,
to get the numbers down to zero, and sometimes people show a voltage of 1 to 2, anyway up to 8 volts, and that's dirty electrical energy coming in and us running hot. But then when I put
yep.
them on grounding, like I'm on a grounding mat right now because I have all my lights, all the things happening. I'm on my grounding mat now, and this is something I suggest everybody to put in their workstations. Um, what device are you using that just shows them something clean and easy? Because a voltmeter, I could see how that could confuse all sorts of people. It took me a very long time to know which buttons to put on the AC, DC, blah 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 blah.
Yes. So I will send you a link to one of my YouTube clips in which I broke down all of that. So I showed three versions of devices that I use, including a voltmeter. Okay. So when we were at the biohacking conference, I believe I showed you the voltmeter and
Nah, you didn't show me any of that because we just
oh, I
talked about
didn't.
your butt cheeks. We talked about your
Oh,
butt cheeks
okay.
and turning on your upper glutes and the foot yoga. And then you were just too busy for me just to gab your ear off because I
Got
would
it.
do
Got
that
it.
all damn day.
Exactly. Okay. All right. So there's I'll explain this briefly, but if you have show notes with your podcast, then we can link to one of my YouTube videos.
Please.
And yeah, and that will literally walk a person through exactly what it is. But I'll give you a quick synopsis. So I like to use three different things to test. One is called a continuity tester.
Wait, hold
That's
on
the
one
most.
second. So let's take a humongous step back because we just unloaded a lot. What we're
Yep.
talking about now is one, we started with hydration, then grounding got into this, and now how both of them work together. But how do you test if you're hydrated and grounded at the same time? That's what we're talking about, correct?
Correct. And yes, correct. That's it's an interesting summarization of that, but yes, and then I'll tell you where that's a little bit different. My I think the best way I would summarize it is that we can show you how hydration can enhance or affect the grounding capability. Maybe that's the
I
best way to.
understand that.
Yeah. Okay.
But now it's
So
now it's a matter of how, like, listening to this, a
how to
person
measure it.
doesn't know everything that we're doing. How do we now know we are hydrated?
Yeah. Oh, great. Okay. So there's three levels of testing. Okay. That I use. There's probably plenty more, but the three levels I like to use are sort of the basic, intermediate, and advanced. Okay. The very basic is what you would get when you first order something from a grounding kit store. So a continuity tester basically just is a yes or no. Is it conductive? Yes or no. So you plug it in to your source, your grounded source, and then you put this little electrode on the back of the continuity tester, put it on the thing you're trying to test that's conductive, a mat or whatever. Put it on there. If a green light comes on, it's conductive. If the no green light comes on, it's not conductive. So you go back, recheck, make sure the batteries are working, blah, blah. If it still shows no conductivity, then that source, for whatever reason, is not correct. And
That
you can
battery's
also
dead.
you can also plug into the wall socket that you're going to use to make sure that the grounding connection is accurate first. That's the first thing you want to test. Is this a correct ground? If it is, then you go and do the next test. Now let's test the conductivity of the different apparatuses. Okay. So when you do that to your body, if you put it on your body after you've done it on the mat, you put it on your body, and your skin is somehow in contact with the grounding mat, but you don't see it light up immediately, that means you're not hydrated, right? That means you don't have enough moisture in your body, you don't have enough conductivity happening in your body, so it might take time for you to finally light up. Okay, doesn't mean it's
Okay.
not working because you've already tested it. Okay, so
So
that's
you're saying if there's no conductivity, your body's not going to be able to work well, or is it
yeah.
vice versa?
If you're not hydrated enough, you're not going to be conductive enough for it to work
So
until
we
you
need
do.
that light. We need that light to be on, not off.
That's right. Yeah, we want it to show up. We want it to shine bright green as soon as I put it on my skin. If I'm standing on a mat and I put it anywhere on my body, because it immediately connects once you get any part of your skin through the piezoelectric effect. Our entire skin organ is conductive, highly conductive, when it's in the right state, when it's in a hydrated state,
Correct.
right? So in the wintertime, if you've got your heater on and your skin is dry and flaky, you're probably not going to be showing that you're grounded, no matter how much water you drink. So you've got to make sure and hydrate your skin, hydrate your body. Boom. Okay. So that's the basic test. Is it yes or no? The next level would be a voltmeter, which is what you've been using. So what we typically do with a voltmeter, same kind of similar setup, make sure that the grounding connection is working. You plug in the red or the black lead to the grounded mat, and then you hold between your fingers, you hold the red lead. That number will read, that's your cellular voltage, okay, your body voltage. And that number is going to be somewhere higher than 0. Okay. On any
Correct.
given day, depending on how much EMF technology you have around you and how stressed you are, right? Whether you just finished a workout or whether you had a great night's sleep, whatever, depending on your stress levels will depend on where that number goes. But I can tell you that if you're dehydrated, that number is going to be very high. Okay. Now, if you are on a grounded source, you hold the red lead and it doesn't go down to 0, doesn't mean that it's not effective. It just means that you're probably not hydrated enough, right? Because it should neutralize it almost immediately. So that's one level to try. Now, no one has to take my word for it. They can literally just say,
Go try it.
Go try it, right? If you have this apparatus, you can look at my clip that I'm going to share with Patrick. If you look at it and you try it yourself and it doesn't work like that, then maybe it doesn't work for you. But the overall understanding is that you should get down to 0 from whatever state you are if you're well hydrated, and that's that. Okay. And then the third level is one of the latest ones that I've been using from Dr. Laura Conover. She's known as the intuition physician. She has a device that is it's basically like a sure ground test meter, and it gives 3 levels of testing. It's not just yes or no. It's is high resistance, which means there's no ground, because the resistance into the conductive body, there's a barrier, there's a resistance. So it's either going to read high, okay, or medium, or low. That's just the level of resistance of the electrical transfer, the electron transfer. So if there's a high resistance, that means there is no transfer happening. So we cannot get the free electrons from the earth into the body.
Yep.
Okay, that's important. If it reads okay, that means that it's an okay. It's a medium resistance. There's some resistance, but maybe there's still too many EMFs around. Maybe there's some of the man-made technology, the AC current that's coming through, possibly. That's one thing. But then if it reads low resistance, that means you're highly conductive and you're getting the best, a superb ground. You're getting the best ground you can get. And the reason why I like that better than the voltmeter and better than the continuity tester is it gives you a level of understanding. So if I'm reading okay and then I drink some of this water and then it eventually reads low resistance, that means I was dehydrated a little bit. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So let's sum this up a little bit. Let's change this up slightly, because I just realized we just did a podcast on grounding and hydration, and I want to talk to you about it also. You got your suits that we have to talk about, your book that we have to talk about. I'm going to bring that up, but I just realized we're almost at an hour already. Like,
Okay. All right. All right. Well,
we're
we can
gonna
go. We can go
have to
through it.
come back and do this again, because this is
Why not?
important.
Why
But
not?
within grounding and hydration, a lot of people, even what I've realized with the people that we work with, we forget that we are electrical beings, right? We think just because we can adapt, because our body's highly adaptable, that we could keep on going. But if you're, like you just said before, if your blood is viscous, very thick, it can't do the things that you want it to do. So eventually it's like your oil in your car. If it gets too thick, it won't be able to hydrate things, and then things will start getting too hot and they'll start boiling out. Eastern
Yep.
philosophy is the same exact way. If your chi is not great, it's just going to burn too hot, which is going to offset the balance or the harmony that your body's in. That's what we're talking about, is getting your body into harmony. So you have to keep on reminding yourself you're an electrical being. And water, and let me rephrase that, hydration and staying hydration is a key a component, a foundational component. But when it comes down to grounding, actually, let me take a step back. I started to realize a trend that people will question you more and ask for more reasons why you are not drinking alcohol, poison, over water. And I found that to be fascinating. It was like a YouTube, Instagram clip, and I was just like, that is true. And I started seeing people have to tell people more reasons why they're not drinking alcohol at an event. It's like, I really don't want to drink the poison. They have to give excuses of why. Did something go wrong? Like, it was like a big joke, and I started asking questions, and more people had more excuses on why, and had to feel justified to say why they're not drinking, rather than saying, I like to drink water to stay hydrated. People will say, no, I don't drink any water, and nobody have any problems with it. And that's the
Right.
flip that we have to start changing, because that's our foundational tool. So there's two different worlds that we have to worry about now at this precise moment. We are an electrical being that can function and do all sorts of great things. But unless you can get the nasty out, the free radicals out, the things that need to come out of your body, and the easiest, fastest way, and this is what Josh was mentioning, is through grounding. This will start doing everything. You getting outside is awesome, but if you are dehydrated and outside, so sorry, no worky. It just won't work as well. But the more and more you get,
Yeah.
the more and more you get grounded, the more and more you get really, really dialed in into that cellular world, it'll work faster. Now, I have a caveat to this, or a geeky moment, let's say, because we've been geeking out this whole moment. Your intrinsic muscles of your feet also play a massive role in this. If your intrinsic of your muscles are not working well or not firing well, you're not getting electrical transfer through that area. So even though you're hydrated, if your feet don't work, you're not getting the maximum result. So there's all sorts of layers to this, but just remember this: you have to be hydrated through, and I brought up the baking soda, but he just layered in so much more. These two products that he talked about, the ocean minerals as well as a baking soda, but you can just, for now, literally go to your cabinet, grab a little bit of baking soda, put it in some water, put in some sea salt, crush that bad boy back in, shake it up, and sip that throughout the day. You're going to be at a rudimentary, basic level of getting hydrated. Once you're hydrated, your blood tissue starts to move better, things start to flow out of you, as well as now if you get grounded, now you have a reason for getting all the nasty stuff in, out. Now, this is the fun part. Patrick's going to also, Josh has something to say.
Yeah, just really quick. I'll make this really quick. The lowest hanging fruit for anybody in health and wellness is grounding. I want to leave that there. I want to make sure people understand that. It's the lowest hanging fruit. It's the one thing that we can do. Yeah, we can do it passively. You just put it on your bed. My mom does it. My entire family does it. This is something that we should all do. Lowest hanging fruit, period. One. And we can talk about that deeper on another podcast or whenever.
Well, I want to cipher in one more thing, but go ahead.
And then the one thing I want people to understand, when you go to a store and you buy a bottle of water that's claimed to be alkaline water, look on the ingredients and find out what's there. All it is baking soda, sodium bicarbonate. Okay. So if you want to create your own alkaline water, the level or the number of the parts per million, the the 8.4s and the 5.9s and then 9.8 is basically the amount of baking soda that's in it, sodium bicarbonate. That's it. Okay. So just keep that in mind. Also, please be mindful that if you have too much, you will get disaster pants. Okay. It could be bad. Okay.
He called it
So
disaster pants,
yeah.
y'all.
So get just a little bit goes a long way. Okay. That's it. Please.
What I was gonna layer off and say on the next podcast, we're gonna really talk about, because this is something I believe me and you can geek out about, is not only about hydration and all that, but what happens when you get grounded and your body starts releasing things, not only toxins but emotions, because your body has all sorts of emotions that will be leaving you as well. And there's all sorts of micro traumas and major traumas and all the traumas that we have, as let alone when your body detoxes, it also lets go of these emotions as well. And once you're grounded and once you're getting through things, your body's going to say something and do something. And that's where I really, really like to dive in and say, what is your body saying about this? How is your body showing you? What is your body explaining to you? There's always a story that your body's saying, by the way, you just went through a whole hell of crap and now we're going to get it out. But you're not going to feel good while doing it, because your body's eliminating, your body's detoxing. So that's a whole different conversation. I want to leave you with that. But with Josh, and leaving with Josh here, because as you can see, this is why we spent 4 hours in his house, and it was a blink of an eye, because we just geeked out. We were just having fun. And you guys just caught a glimpse of it. He has these lovely suits that I'm absolutely bringing into my practice. I'm loving every second of them. Um, I want to talk to you about that, just not right now, but I want you just to give people a clean gist of those suits, because that's what, not your claim to fame, but that's something that you develop from the ground up. And I want to give you props for that, bro. Not a lot of
Thank you.
people are taking something and running with it like that. So I want you to talk about that. And then how can these people find you, as well as your book?
Okay. Very
Suits,
quickly.
book, tell me how they can find you.
You got it. Okay. So let's start with electrical muscle stimulation. So when Patrick is saying the suits, he's talking about EMS suits or electrical muscle stimulation suits. There's again, it's probably another controversial domain, and it mostly comes from those who don't know about it, or those who haven't utilized it, or those who haven't utilized it properly. That makes it controversial. So if we all understand the power of TENS therapy, which is transcutaneous electrical nerve stimulation, that's the acronym TENS. If we understand that that is beneficial and that works, most of us have experienced some level of that. If you've had pain and you've ever had to go to the physical therapist, they usually attach electrodes to different parts of your body to sort of dull down that pain response. And what that is doing, TENS therapy is designed to be as like a nerve block for a moment in time. It allows that dumbing down, that lowering of that pain signal, so that you can then get through whatever movements you need to get through. TENS therapy is great. However, electrical muscle stimulation is a different arena when it comes to it, but it's under the same umbrella. So they're all under the same umbrella as electrical muscle stimulation, but there's true muscle activation products, and then there's nerve stimulation products. So ours does both, okay? And there's also a difference between alternating current, known as AC current, and direct current, which is DC current. Our bodies operate with a DC current, so it's more biologically similar to our bodies. Therefore, we wanted to go with a system that utilizes DC current. Okay, and then and I must say, I did not. I mean, I wish I had invented electrical muscle stimulation. It's been around for a long time. I think back in like the 1700s was kind of the first use cases when they took electric eels and they applied it to different people um, for I forget what problems they did it for, but it was basically kind of like shock therapy. They were trying to get people out of these manic states to try to see if this would work, and they got some success. Obviously, they hurt some people along the way, I'm sure, but one of the more famous studies was done with this doctor who used frog legs and was able to stimulate frog legs and show that the muscles were still working even though it was completely separated from the body. So they were able to see that muscle fibers can work. That's maybe a pro and a con, because it's going to work if you ask it to, because there is a difference between voluntary muscle action, which is something that we control consciously, and then there's involuntary muscle action, which are the things that we don't control, right? Things that, I mean, we might be able to control it or alter it, but it works on its own. And so when you can have a passive activation of your muscles through a suit, and then you compare that with your voluntary muscle action by doing an exercise or a workout, now you're getting the best of both worlds. And one of the benefits with this suit is that you can activate your fast twitch muscle fibers immediately, which is very hard to do when you're doing just conventional training. You can do it, but it takes a lot more work. And so what I want people to understand is that electrical muscle stimulation has been around for a while. You can go and search whole body electrical muscle stimulation, which just basically means all the major muscle groups are being stimulated at once. And you should be able to turn muscle groups on or off. You should be able to go from right side to left side. You can do a lot of cool things with it. But one of the main benefits is that you pair this with your exercise. And what I love about it is sometimes it helps people to turn on muscles that they have never turned on. I shouldn't say never turned on, but they need to wake up certain muscle groups. And this is what fascinated me about you, is because you were talking about being able to activate, this, you call it sensory motor amnesia.
Sensory motor amnesia.
I love that, right? This is one of those things that kind of can break through some of that, right? Now, it doesn't only work if you just use this and never apply some of your consciousness to it, right? You got to be conscious about what you're trying to achieve. But when that light bulb turns on, when you wake up that muscle group, it's like, whoa, okay, now you can go and do something. Because when we go to a physical therapist, or anyone that's trying to get us out of pain, normally we have no idea, as a coach, we have no idea if it's actually working the way we want it to work. But what we do is we tell somebody to get into a certain shape, right? So get into a plank or a bird dog exercise or whatever, right? Get into a certain exercise and then do this many reps, and squeeze here, squeeze there, go. And then it's the feedback in which we kind of hope that the client understands it, and we hope that they're actually activating it. But how do we know? When you put on an electrical muscle stimulation suit and then do the same thing, I know without a fraction of a doubt that it is activating the parts I want it to activate, and at a certain depth. Okay. So that's all I want people to understand, right? There is a whole bunch of science to it, and we can talk about that in another time. But I took this understanding that I learned from the old school EMS machines. Okay. These were big machines that cost $20,000 for one machine and maybe one or two suits. You plug this machine into the wall.
And it's DC current, which is no good.
That was AC current. Those were AC current. Yeah. So those were AC.
Those are AC current.
AC current, because you have to plug it into the wall, right?
Correct.
And that was like, it's very powerful. It's amazing technology, but you had to water down the suits. You had to have this thing plugged in. It was very heavy. You had to put it on a stand. You had to do all these knobs, blah, blah, blah. And, because it was so intense, you were only asked, and also you were connected to a cable. So you couldn't go too far from the machine. Otherwise it would fall over. So there was a lot of limitations, but the light bulbs came on almost every time I did a session. And the first time I did a session was with a sheikh from Qatar who flew over. He had one of these machines on his jet. He flew over, took me through a session himself. And before I finished the session, I thought, this is going to change the world of fitness tremendously. And so here we are now. Fast forward from having that $20,000 machine that you have to plug in and have all these cases and whatever, it was super expensive, to now we have a suit that is designed in the way that I think maximizes the opportunity, and we're only going better, right? We're trying to get we're raising money right now to get have a US manufacturer. And then I told you about the next level of the suit, which I won't say much about it right here, right now, because I want to get this first one off the ground. And I've been working with this suit with my clients. You got a chance to try it as well. I think there's a video of that. So we've been using it since I think since 2016. And we're now at the point where we're about to go public with it. We're about to start selling online. So stay tuned on that. It's amazing. It's amazing.
So real brief, real quick, you wrote a book. Let's grab
Yeah,
that book.
here
This
it
book is
is.
actually pretty damn cool. Um, Josh, walk us through the book and then tell them how we can find you. So, because I know I'm trying to shut up because you opened up so many holes. I was really holding it
I
back.
know.
But tell them about the book. Tell them why they should have it. Don't be modest because this is something
Okay.
that people need.
So the book, as you guys saw, I held it up. I'll hold it up again. It's called The Awareness Shift, and it was I co-wrote this book with a former client of mine and good friend Tessa Cash, and it's basically it answers that question of Josh, who are you and what do you do? That kind of breaks it down in this book. The whole gist of the book, or the subtitle of the book, is Unearth the 5 pillars of optimal health and wellness. And so that should give you an indication of how the book is sort of broken down. It's broken down into 5 key points or pillars. And those pillars, just quickly, are they're all designated quality, right? Because, I think all of these pillars can be on a spectrum. But pillar number 1, which I think is the most important thing, is quality awareness. Pillar number 2 is quality rest, which includes sleep and recovery. Pillar number 3 is quality consumption. Pillar number 4, and I say consumption because of drinking, eating, and the energy that we consume around us in our environment, right? That's all within consumption.
And
Okay.
don't say anymore. Let people get it, man. Don't tell
Okay.
them. Don't give them all, man. Like
Okay.
tell them where to find it, and then tell them how to find you, man.
All right. So I'll give a link for that as well, but it's on my website, joshuajholland.com. Any of my social media is at Joshua J. Holland. I was fortunate enough to be able to get that everywhere. So at Joshua J. Holland. That's all together, no periods. And yeah, the book, I mean, we sell it on Amazon, but you can also find it through my link tree, which is on my social media description. It's also will be on the show notes here. I would assume I'll share all that with you, but you can find it there, and reach out, subscribe to my YouTube channel if you can, because I'm going to start rolling out some really interesting stuff, and I'm going to start doing some like subscriber only stuff. So don't miss out, and also your podcast, Mr. Patrick's podcast, you, my friend, will be on my show very soon. Right. So yeah, I'll let that cat out the bag.
Damn it. All right. So everyone, I really do love these conversations. If Josh would love, I would love to have him back and we can really go geeking out on. There's so many things I want to talk about: biohacking, optimizing performance, as well as the belief aspect of how we get to the next level. Because that's what this is really about. How do we find out where we are and getting to where we want to go and breaking past the beliefs to get there? We got sidetracked and got geeky and started talking about hydration and biohacking, and we didn't find out what makes him tick in the aspect of getting to the next level. But as you can see, he's consistently growing. And what he doesn't realize, which I'm starting to realize now, is he has a habit loop that's now identifying and breaking his own beliefs before he's ever recognizing that they become an impediment. And that's a rare feat, a rare thing that a lot of people that benefits him in that way. And I want to walk you through that in a different time, in a different conversation. But Josh, I thank you so much for being here, man. I thank you so much for giving me the time to geek out with you and love up on these people, because everyone needs someone to get them to the next level. And I believe you helped a lot today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And if any of you guys enjoyed this conversation, please give feedback, because this is important. It helps us all keep going. So thank you for your time as well.
And that's absolutely right. If you liked it, share it. If you don't, please tell me what you would like to improve from it, because I don't take anything as a bad thing. I just see ways of improve. So please talk to me, holler at me. See you in the next one.